There's no love lost between Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and the Public Regulation Commission, no doubt on that. Over the first two lawmaking sessions of her term, she and legislators crafted a shutdown plan for the San Juan generating station that stepped on a few toes. She's supporting a constitutional amendment to turn the PRC, the Public Regulation Commission, into an appointed position rather than the elected one it is now. Now, she's flexed her muscle by having another state agency evict the PRC from its headquarters in downtown Santa Fe, and that's where we'll begin our line opinion panel. Joining us today is frequent guest Crystal Ciarza. She's president and owner, I should say, of Ciarza Social Digital. Sorry, Crystal. Serge Martinez is with us. We're so glad to have a former state rep with us as well, and that would be local attorney Justine Fox-Young. She's back with us. Now, Justine, we'll get into the PRC's lengthy list of miscues, missteps, and crimes in a minute. But first, office space. The agency still has to do the work it's been given in state law, and the Constitution. Why the eviction?
Right. I mean, why? It's a petty and I think very wrong-headed move on the part of the governor. You've got something like 120 employees who are working from home. I'm not sure how regulators are supposed to do their jobs in that kind of environment. If the pandemic would end tomorrow, these folks would still be working from home. They have nowhere to meet, nowhere to keep their files,
right.
Nowhere to conduct business. And it's totally insane. I think two things happened from what I can tell that have really set the governor off. One is some members of the PRC picked a fight with her over the San Juan generating station. So difference of opinion in how to proceed. And then secondly, she's pushing the constitutional amendment. I think the great irony is if you disable this agency and prevent them from doing a lot of pretty critical work that the agency does, even if she gets her constitutional amendment, how do you make this place work? You have to have a working entity at that point. And I understand the governor is shaking down all kinds of left-wing groups and, renewable energy entities in support of the constitutional amendment. But the problem is those are some of the same sort of good government folks who really do want to see this place work. They want to see regulators be able to do their jobs. And my biggest concern is that the consumer gets screwed in all of this because there's nobody watching. And
you just hit a point right there. Yeah, I appreciate you just saying that. Let me turn to Serge on this. Serge, we're talking about good government here. And the PRC regulates all kinds of things that affect everyday New Mexicans every day, if you get my drift. It's not a 30,000-foot policy shop. It's a direct, this is what, your wallet, your health, everything. What's in the sense of good government? Is this good government? I mean, are we being served here as taxpayers?
I mean, I don't think so. I agree with Justine. It seems like a petty and perhaps, it's a move that can backfire in the sense of this is a constitutionally created, part of our government. They do, as you say, like the more I learn about it, the more I'm surprised at how many things are affected by the work of the PRC. And I think, the crippling of it or hobbling it or just, being annoying to it is not going to serve any of us well, and scoring, relatively cheap points off of them. And I get it. This organization is not without lots of dysfunction and lots of historically and lots of its own missteps. But I think taking this moment to try to really, to punish them it's not going to help New Mexicans, and it's not going to help our state, deal with all of the boring stuff that really makes a government run.
Mm-hmm. Crystal, interestingly, when you think about this, the PRC got notice of this in March, but they didn't get any money from anybody. General Services Department says there's no space anywhere. It just seems very undone. I'm curious why there wasn't money let out maybe during the special session. They could have dealt with it then. Something seems off here. What's your sense of it?
Oh, absolutely. Something seems off. And for as long as I've been on New Mexico in focus, I've really tried to avoid the conversation of the PRC, simply put, because it's so difficult to understand exactly all that they do. And, in terms of running, running a business, right? If you see the lines of you didn't pay your rent, you get evicted. As soon as I read that within the first paragraph of the story from, I believe it was the Santa Fe New Mexican that talked about it in depth. If you don't pay your rent, you don't get to stay in the building, right?
They're not required to pay rent.
Well, according to the story, that's what was specifically on there. So as a business owner, when you're reading something like that, well, yeah, it makes sense. And as you see, like lower into it, they were kind of put at a disadvantage because of the fact that a line item for their budget was actually vetoed. Mm-hmm. And they even said that they've tried to have the PRC as a department has tried to have conversations with the governor, and it's not fair that the governor is not opening her door to her necessarily. And I can't say whether or not Governor Lujan Grisham is using this as an opportunity to genuinely change the department. But what I have noticed in her administration is that if there's inefficiencies or definitely disagreements with some of the policies and the types of procedures or changes that she's trying to make in administration, it's very obvious for us to point fingers and say she doesn't agree with them. So they're getting the can. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a really terrible situation. It obviously can create problems. It can be very problematic for us as New Mexicans. But at the same time, I don't know if the constitutional amendment is going to change, but something's got to change. If people are constantly taking the PRC as a conversation of things are not working in the best interest of New Mexicans and things are stalling. A perfect example is like the Zia Trust energy line. We couldn't get clearance from the PRC, and the economic impact of that was definitely in the, I want to say $150 to $200 million for the PRC. Still couldn't get it passed. Like you said, Justine, earlier in our conversation before it, they don't necessarily have a figure to run the PRC. There is no elected official that runs the PRC. So it's government inefficiency that's costing, obviously, taxpayers the problem. And obviously now they can't find a building. But hey, whenever there's lemons, you make lemonade. So I'm sure the PRC will figure it out.
I find it hard to believe the General Services Department doesn't have space. You give it a couple of weeks, that'll turn around quick. Justine, let me ask you this. You brought this up brilliantly as we started this. Even if the constitutional amendment passes, it won't be until 2023 until the governor can appoint 3 seats on the PRC. So, don't we have to figure out a way to make this work until then? 2023 is a bit of time away here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every good executive at any level, mayors of Albuquerque, governors of New Mexico, have figured out you just have to have basic functions of government work or people are going to turn against you. And, once people start...
Is there a danger here for the governor on this?
Yeah, I think what you're going to start to see happening on a sort of micro level is cases are going to be settled, often to the detriment of consumers, because it's just too hard. It's too hard to convene a meeting. It's too hard to deal with hard problems and get folks together. And there's going to be much less sunshine and scrutiny on what the PRC is doing. And so there are going to be interest groups who are very dissatisfied with that. And basic things, this is a licensing entity. People aren't going to be able to get stuff done. So this has sort of all the pettiness and retaliation, that we saw sometimes with Governor Richardson. Some people may say also with Governor Martinez, but none of the strategy. This is just not the fight to pick. It's not a winner for her. She's got to keep this place working. And it's bad for consumers. It's bad for the utilities. It's bad for everybody if it doesn't work.
I just to quickly comment on it,
Please.
though, again, like from a distance, not knowing all the details of the PRC and being very aware of the fact of the ignorance level I might be portraying on this one. But it sounds like the PRC has obviously been very dysfunctional for the last several years. And this situation is pretty much the icing on the cake. So even if this situation had happened under the Governor Martinez administration, at this point, it has to be a wake-up call that the PRC has got to get its stuff together. There's no doubt about it.
Fair enough.
No more dysfunctional than many other state agencies. Still does a lot of important work. And that's true. And some people believe the constitutional amendment will change that. I think you can have a substantive, educated conversation about whether or not the commissioners should be elected. But you cannot take the position that they shouldn't have an office and they shouldn't be able to meet and they shouldn't be able to have hearings.
That's a very good point there. Well said. Serge, do we put too much into the past discretions of the PRC do we make too much of this? We're always joking about E. Shirley Baga, Jerome Block Jr. I mean, every state agency has its, people that do crazy things. Do we pick on the PRC too much here?
I have never thought of it in that way of poor PRC getting picked on. I mean, I think you're not wrong that any sort of agency, any organization is going to have moments that it wish were not quite so public and people were not paying attention to. But, if these things keep coming to the fore, then, obviously they're going to get folks' attention. So while I'm aware that, maybe on this show we talk about the PRC more than your average New Mexican does in casual conversation, and they do get a lot of attention. I don't think that it's necessarily, they're being picked on or more so than any other agency. They are very, they're involved in all of our lives and should be paid attention to. And so I'm not too worried about them getting picked on.
They're big boys and girls. They can handle it. Crystal, I got one last question. You got about a minute on this. Are we seeing a harder edge to the governor than we realized maybe she has all along? I mean, this is a tough stance. Is she tougher on these things than we've maybe come to think of her up to this point?
I think the public's finally seeing it in the limelight. And of course, when you go in the roundhouse now, pre-session or like during the session, et cetera, and they're seeing that there's a person, and I've talked about this in multiple different ways, like our governor is a bulldog, and not only is she a bulldog, I mean that in the utmost respect possible, where if there's problems with leadership, there needs to be change. If there's problems with execution, there needs to be change. Any good leader is going to look at these principles of leadership and make changes to be effective, and no matter what type of, if it's a government, if it's business, et cetera. So I think this is the first time that we're actually seeing something, though we can't necessarily pinpoint if this was a political move because she didn't get what she wanted from the PRC. If we were to say fair and balanced on that particular subject. But I think it's a perfect example of dissatisfaction and action being taken towards the dissatisfaction.
There you go. We'll have to leave that there. When this group returns, we're talking about Brian Urlacher's falling out with his college football team and how it typifies the tough conversations being had across the country.